All right, so I have a few slides here on post settlement occupancy agreement, and I will bring the agreement up in just a moment. But I want to just pinpoint the contracts that are the paragraphs that are issues here. So we're just going to go straight through the form with the pretty little slides here and explain what we've got to look at. And where I have seen that agents, it's not agents, it's actually buyers and sellers miss this. And they sign it in the heat of the moment of getting under contract, and then they want to let it they want to do something different than what they agreed to. That's all I'm saying. So the first thing is the dollars and dates in paragraph 1. There's an occupancy charge. We commonly call this the rent back, but I guess legally it's really not a rent back. It's there are fees, but there's an occupancy charge, and you can do either a per day or a per diem charge or a flat fee. Let's deal with 2 weeks, okay? They want to stay there for 14 days. Um, and so they say, well, yeah, when you look at what that cost should be, I always used to be, in the old days, you would just say, well, what's your monthly payment? And let's divide that by 30, Mr. Buyer, Ms. Buyer, and then that's what you owe me. Um, I've gone by, well, what would it cost you to move your stuff out and get a hotel room and put your stuff in storage? So that puts it at about $300 to $400 a night. In a competitive market, many times the buyers want to give them a free rent back. What I'm about to go into on the dollars and cents here is when you have not done that, and what happens when people want to change the agreement in the middle of it. So let's just go paragraph by paragraph here. So you're going to put down a per day or flat fee, and you're also going to have an occupancy deadline. This is going to keep coming up through the form. And you need to be understand, and I say you need to understand, your buyer and seller must understand what occupancy deadline is versus the time that they vacate. If they vacate early in paragraph 2, the buyer and seller select will or will not refund unused occupancy charge. And this is where you begin the disagreement. And you, as the agent who has now already been past the transaction a week or two, is getting the phone call, the email. I need you to step in as my agent, and we'll see in a moment what the form actually says about that. You're not in it anymore. But you are selecting early on, will not refund unused occupancy charge. Mr. Seller, Ms. Seller, if you leave early, are you okay paying for the rest of the time you're supposed to be there? Because what's happening here is the buyer has made plans with that money to get hotel room, to put stuff in storage, to give the privilege of the seller to stay in the property. Unless it's free rent back, then there's no problem, or free occupancy charge. The next thing is the seller will be responsible for utilities and maintenance through the occupancy deadline, even if they vacate early. It's our 2 weeks. They're into day number 7 or 8, and they leave on day 8. There's still another 6 days to go. Where the challenge comes up is where a seller has left and they have turned off the utilities and they've walked out. Well, why wouldn't I turn off the utilities? I'm not here anymore. It's the occupancy deadline, not the date that they're in the property. Also, if they're leaving early, they need to um, they need to give a 3-day written notice that they're going to leave early. They just can't leave early, and they have to give that notice to the buyer. See, they've gone through 30 days of transaction and probably 60, 90, 120, whatever days of a relationship with you. And now at the tail end here, they have got this agreement together with the buyer and seller. They're still hanging on to you guys, wanting you to take care of having to talk with someone. And that's not what we do anymore. They give that notice to the buyer, not to you and me and the title company. Okay? They are now involved in an agreement that they've got to talk with the person on the end of that, and it's not us. Misunderstanding these requirements create tons of problems, emails, texts, and accusations. And this, it just happens. I don't see it going away, but I'm wanting to prepare you on what to say to people. This comes up a lot. I'm just letting you know. It's not just every once in a while. It's almost every single month. I'm dealing with a buyer or a seller, or the agent of the buyer or seller, who now wants us to enter into that agency task of communicating. And if you make sure you stop, slow down on both the buyer and seller side, this is your responsibility. Act like you're in a rental because you need to talk with the buyer or you need to talk with the seller when you got things going on. If they're vacating the property later, after the 2 weeks, they're on day number 15, 16 because something happened, it's going to cost them more. If they've had a free rent back for 25, 30 days, now they're going to have to start paying something. Now, in the agreement, we say double the daily fee. If you got a double fee of zero, you're going to have to put this number in there. And I would say $300 at least. That's 3,000 bucks a month if they hadn't ended up staying there. And also it's if they go beyond it and they're not supposed to, if you have to sue, if you have to do storage fees, accommodations, hotel, you need some money there as the buyer to take care of all that. It's not free rent just because the people have lived there. And, the buyer should be satisfied that they actually got the property. They now need to take care of the buyer's needs. Paragraph 3, security deposit. It is held by the escrow agent, whoever that is. Usually it's the title company that handled the closing. It could be someone else, but I like it being with the title company because they have requirements on them by the law, and they're not going to do something that's going to threaten their own license. The buyer is to inspect and submit a list of deficiencies within 3 business days after the occupation deadline. Again, it starts getting messy when the seller decides to leave early. Oh, my house is ready. I'm leaving now. And they're thinking that, well, the day I left, you've got 3 business days to do your inspection. No, they got 3 business days after the deadline. Now they could change this if they have an agreement with each other. Say, hey, look, we're leaving Friday. Could you have all this done by, Tuesday or Wednesday instead of the next Friday? We'd appreciate that. They can sign that. Nothing verbal. Again, nothing verbal. You want it written down, signed off on. Okay. If the buyer misses the deadline for the list, so let's say the deadline is Friday, or the deadline they're supposed to leave Friday and they leave Friday. The 3 business days is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And Thursday morning comes and the buyer has not turned this list in, they've lost claim to the deposit. Their silence has told the seller, I agree, the house is in good shape and you don't owe me anything. Here's where the headache comes in. They missed the deadline because they were doing something else, whatever, but they had this list of 5 things they wanted taken care of, and now they're arguing. And this is when they do what? What do they do now? They call us in. They want us to be the bad guy or bad girl. Okay. You go tell them, yep, no, we're out. We're out. Utilities, another one here. Seller keeps connected through the deadline, not when they're actually in the property. Again, they decide to leave early. They're not supposed to do anything. They're not supposed to be out till Tuesday. They leave Friday and they turn everything off. And now the buyer is got a house with no electricity, no water, whatever happens there. Paragraph 5. I call this one, you ain't involved, meaning you, the agent. Agents are removed in this paragraph are supposed to be removed from communications and notices after settlement. They're supposed to provide each other with contact information. I have seen agents say, no, we don't want to give you they are required by each other to give contact information. Okay. So they got to do that. Paragraph 6, sellers maintain property. Again, they're in the property. They're not a landlord and tenant situation. The seller's still taking care of it. Dishwasher goes out, they take care of it. HVAC goes out, they take care of it. Okay. And again, they provide the contact information with each other. They must be returned in substantially the same condition per the contract agreement. Now, if they had any as is provisions, those still remain. If they say the air conditioner's as is, they say the dishwasher's as is, they don't have to be fixed. But if something goes on with the property, the owner has to call and get that taken care of. Okay. Homeowners insurance. Buyers responsible for hazard insurance, policy for fire, flood, and casualty. Now, this way it is like a landlord tenant. I'm responsible for the house and anything that goes wrong with it, but you as the seller are responsible for liability in your personal property. Okay. If policies are duplicate on the insurance, then the buyers becomes the primary and the sellers becomes the secondary. So tree falls on the carport, they got to fix the roof. The limit on the buyers is, $2,000. They have to dip into the sellers. The sellers agreeing ahead of time. You can use mine too, but yours is the primary. If either one of them asks for proof of insurance, they must present it. Keys, please. Paragraph 9, and this is where normally at a closing, we would give all the keys and fobs and access codes and everything to the buyer at closing. But since there's a post occupancy thing going on here, it's just one set of keys. The fobs, the extra keys are delivered after the vacancy. Okay. Reasonable access is allowed to the buyer, but the buyer can't. I mean, they could, if they want, put stuff in the garage, but you have to have that is agreed to. The agreement does allow will or will not show property to prospective buyers and tenants. So if they say no, then no, the buyer can't come in with tenants to show the property when they're trying to get done in those last two weeks. Okay. All right. So that is that on the basics of it. I want to also show the actual, let's get in the way here, document. So this is the one that you're signing. We're about to get into the spring market. Seller's going to want that extra time. And so this is what the high points I just talked about. See this occupancy deadline? This is the one that goes all the way through this agreement. And people see it, they sign it, they move along. And I'm just encouraging you to make sure they understand what their responsibility is under this agreement. You must have the utilities on. If you have any damage in the property, you, Mr. or Ms. Seller, must fix it. But Mr. or Ms. Buyer, if you don't get that list 3 business days after after the deadline, they don't have to fix it. You've accepted it as it is. Okay. So the deficiencies of the list is very important. The deadline of when they do things, the vacating early, and will or will not that money be refunded. You know, oh, you need to leave early? Sure, I'll give that to you. Get it in writing. But again, if the buyer and seller are agreeing to these things outside of outside of the ratification, and they're doing something later, that's when it comes down and they start calling us. And they need to have a written agreement on these types of items when they're changing things up. Yeah, Dilshan.
I think so. I actually, I'm going through this right now with one of my clients. She's going to rent it back. Quick question. So on the purchase contract, it says the property needs to be in the same condition as of the home inspection date. And for the rent back down below for the other line, I said they need to bring the house back to the date as of the home inspection date. Is that something you recommend, or is there a different verbiage I can use?
Well, it's duplicating what's already here.
Okay.
So it says property maintenance and condition. You can say that, and if the buyer feels better with those extra words in there, that's fine. But it says here that except as agreed in paragraph 8 below, and any modifications to the contract of the as-is property condition, paragraph 2B. Seller will deliver property in substantially the same physical condition as in settlement date and broom clean. It's the same language as that paragraph in the contract.
Okay, got it.
It's there,
Yeah.
but if they want to put a little extra, handcuff on them, they could add the words.
Yep. That's what I did. I just want to double check.
Yeah. Anybody else? This is paragraph 10 where you put other terms that they want to put in there. And folks, don't ratify this without this last page filled out. Some agents get all nervous when they put their buyer or seller's information out there. Well, they could call them. Yeah, they could. All right. They're not going to. We hope not. But this is the place where we have information for the buyer and seller to communicate with each other. Your role in this, if they call you, is to give them guidance, not get in the middle of it. Okay. And I'm just telling you, it happens regularly. Doesn't matter the experience level of the agent. I've had to deal with top producers to beginners. This happens across the board because who's making all the headaches here? The buyer and seller who didn't understand this form. I heard someone say something or hiccup or whatever.
Yeah, that was actually me. So
Okay.
when I fill this section out, I just put the escrow with universal title contact information. You're saying I need to send it back to my buyer and with all the information filled out.
Right. This is part of the contract. It's an addendum.
Okay.
So at the bottom of the addendum, notice information to be completed by the parties at or before settlement. So they could do this at settlement if they don't want to do it now.
Okay.
So I kind of amend what I just said there, but make sure they have each other's information. On the paragraph above, it says that they are giving me, um, yeah, if a party fails to exchange contact information with the other party at or before settlement, buyer and seller authorize broker and or settlement agent to release contact information to the requesting party. So silence is not golden when it comes to this kind of stuff here. And I'll just tell you, this is a big complaint area. They get upset. They don't, sellers don't want to pay the extra money. Buyers get upset if they leave something behind. They want us to take care of it. They left crap in the garage. Well, okay, call them. Well, you call them. You're my agent. It's like, say, well, I appreciate that, but my agency license ends at closing. So just get on the horn, give them a call, and say, hey, you left some stuff here. And if they decide they're going to leave it, then you got to go after the seller to say, okay, I got to have this hauled off myself. And now it's going to cost me $400 to have a junk company come out. You need to pay me. Again, they'll want us to get involved. And that's where you just kind of gently but firmly say, I can't get involved. You need an attorney to go after them. Doesn't mean you don't write them notices, say, I need you to take care of this, have it cleaned up and go after reimbursement. All of those are parts of the plan you can put together to get them to do the right thing. But we're not going to keep negotiating this thing for weeks. Okay. It's give them guidance on what they need to do. Anything else on this? Okay.
The problem with all that, Anthony, is that we have been holding these people's hands all along and we're hoping to get future business from them and future referrals.
Yeah.
And it just goes against our nature to
Yeah.
say, sorry, you're on your own.
Yeah. And that's what I say, give them guidance, but just let them know, say, let me help you out. And then we get on the phone with the agent, and I've just seen this. It can go sideways because they're very emotional. They want to blame somebody. And now you're in there serving a role you're not supposed to be serving. And just because the agency isn't over doesn't mean they can't file a complaint against you or the other party files a complaint against you because you did something now post settlement that they don't like or they don't like the result. Whereas they need to talk with each other. If anything, they can talk with the title company because that's who's holding the money. And the title company can help them maybe not negotiate, but write any type of agreement that needs to come together. So, all right.